My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Soulivity Live. Hey, how you doing, sir? My sister, how are you?
Hey.
This one, right? we might need some more wine for this. So, let's get this party started, y'all. Hey, my sister, mademoiselle.
That is the most amazing introduction I've ever heard.
Oh, being here. Oh, what an amazing day. Go make it even more amazing. Myself and Addison, Brian Wesley Johnson. Thank you for joining us on Saturday morning. Full of passion, purpose, and high quality living. See you next time.
Bye.
The sun rises and the heartbeat of the world begins. Where does today take you? What new journey begins? Take a leap and live the impossible dream. Create your own new story from your soul.
That was very strict, bureaucrat, CEO, director. Mom was a nurse, and he didn't want mom to work. And so she stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home mom that looked after the numerous children, and but it was cool. She was active. We were privileged. We had people looking after us when when she needed help. Clean. We had people driving the car, taking us to school, because that was never there. But the one thing that she did herself, that she never wanted anyone to touch, is cooking food for us. And she was a fantastic cook. So she cooked meals from different parts of the country, and she used to kind of mix it up, and we never ever had one meal like you would have like rice and sauce. We never. It was always rice, sauce, and plantain and cassava and macabo, I don't know how you say that in English, and different things, vegetables, soups, and you choose. We grew up, she was saying to us, don't ever say I can't eat this or that. You have to eat everything. But when we're eating, eat what you love. So I didn't know how, it makes me a little bit emotional. I didn't know how privileged we were. She was amazing. Yeah. She was really resilient, and that's what I took from her. She was strong, and she, for example, she didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to work, but she would do it. She would, she would grow vegetables, she would grow different things. She would walk kilometers just to grow stuff. She would teach us to cook. Boys and girls, you will all cook. You have to know how to cook. And then during the weekend, she would ask us to clean the floor, to wash the dishes. We'll be, oh, mom. She's like, okay. She's like, these people are working, that's their job. You need to, learn how to do that for yourself. My dad wanted us to be like, doctors, different lawyers and things like that. And in Cameroon, because we all, the first language is French, but there are second languages that you can learn a little bit. And he wanted us to, you're going to learn like German, you're going to learn Spanish. He wanted us to be like diverse and be these bureaucratic people like himself. But mom have like this way of life. She didn't force anything. Everything was smooth. And I just loved the way she dealt with stuff. That would be, come here, what did you do? You will be punished. And mom would say, sit down. They were so different. Like, what happened? And she would let you speak. You will be lying or you will be telling the truth. She will listen. And then she will kind of put in front of you what that means, the choices that you make. This is what can come out of it, so it's up to you. So I kind of took the liberty of being the boss of myself based on what mom said. And I never really listened to anyone. People think I'm stubborn, but it's simply because I don't just do things. I think about them, and I make the decision to do them. So if you just jump in and say, I don't think this is a good idea or whatever, and you don't know the background and you don't ask the question, I just ignore you because you don't know what you're talking about. See what I mean? So when I became a little bit older, I think when I was going to college, my year 7 here, could call year 7 here, I actually choreographed my first choreograph. I was in year 7. I didn't mean to choreograph anything. It was just that I joined a dance group, and all the girls were older, year 9, year 10, year 12, and we have like this fantastic teacher who was directing all of us, and we were performing around different schools, even away from the city where I was in Douala. So they're training the girls. I'm standing at the back copying them. But I noticed that the song, they were like a repeat, a certain rhythm that was coming back. It was like a song that was going like, "Oh mama titi ai tin tin, oh mama titi ai tin tin," and all the time that tin tin will come back, and then it go iyo iyo. So for me, the movement they were doing wasn't going with the song, so I would copy them, and when that tin tin come, I do something else. And then when the refrain "EO" comes, I would do something, that goes with the song. The teacher said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm following the song." I said, "Wow, stand in front here. Look, do it." Oh, I'm like, "Thank you." I was like, and then here we go. The whole class is following me. I'm just very tiny. That was my first piece of choreography. From there on, I just started going everywhere. When different cities in Cameroon, and it was really fun. And I was so grateful that my dad, because he was so strict, and he let me do it. He let me travel, so I loved him for that. And I was traveling, and I just thought, what? I love the dance we're doing. They were calling it modern dance. Just like ballet, I thought, they can do something more, because they have like all these ideas I wanted to do. But it took a long time, because when I was 15, I was noticed on the street and asked to model. I'm not that tall. I'm 5'7". Some people say 8, but I think I'm 7 or 8 if you want. So I started modeling, and it was fun. Again, taking charge of my destiny and knowing what I'm worth. And I learned later in life that when you don't think too much about things, you don't think too much about yourself, you don't think that important. You know your worth, but you're not like, you're not thinking too much about how you look or whatever. It worked out because you're just you. And people love when people are just them because they can see through it. When you're putting up being something you're not, people can see it. They will laugh and you think they're laughing with you, but they're actually laughing at you. When we were growing up, Mom, she was a trained nurse, but who went to a boarding school, but she actually had love for fabric. And she used to sew our clothes. I was looking at our picture, I couldn't find it, where we all standing there, my two sisters, my brother and I, and all the things that we're wearing, Mom sold them. I cannot believe, I mean, like a suit like what you're wearing, like, when did she learn to do that? She was just amazing. So she had la Singère à la maison, which is a sewing machine, they call it here Singer, or Singer, and she showed us how it works. It wasn't the one that you do with hand, it was actually the pedaling one. And I was just like, oh, this is so boring. she would cut like she would choose like cotton fabric and cut like little square of cotton fabric and give it to all of us, and then thread needles and start something like she called point de croix, point d'avant, point de chaînette, like different stitches. And she would start a line and say, okay, stand here and carry on. And we would do it a little bit, but we do it. When you finish one line, she would start a different stitch. I'm like, oh, goodness me, do I have to do this? And my sister, my older sister, she was so good. She was just like that. And my young sister as well, very, disciplined. And I was just like, oh, this, like the same thing again and again, boring. And but she planted the seed in me. And so I had like this love of how things are put together. Because we didn't have dolls when I was growing up. We didn't have like, the plastic doll, the paper doll. We used to take like the fantastic doll, natural doll, no chemical. It's like you actually pull I've never seen that herb here. You pull it out of the ground, and then when you pull it out of the ground, it have like les racines, the roots. And the roots, interestingly, they weren't just like 2 or 3. There will be like 100 roots, like 100, 200. They will look like hair. And then the rest, when you turn the herb this way, so the roots become the hair, and then the rest of the root is like a skirt. So what I used to do, and some other children as well, would like separate the herb on the side and tie them. Those are the arms, and then the rest is the body. So you can either cut it in half to have the body and then the rest, or just leave. I used to just leave it like that, and you do thing on the hair, and just maybe put like a little tiny button here to the mouth. It was lovely. So we used to do that. I was like kind of, without knowing it, being into the sewing, like fashion and cooking, earlier age, very, very early age. But I didn't want to do that. Oh, I'm not a cook. I'm not a sewer. No. I wanted to do I don't know what. But when I created and also the dance with Mom, she used to teach us like little French songs, songs that she would put together herself. Ah, que je suis donc contente du jupon qu'on m'a donné. Ah, que je suis donc contente du jupon qu'on m'a donné. Quand je cueille les goyaves, mon jupon fait une corbeille. Tic 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 tic. You know, like that. It was just, and the dance will come with it as well. You know, qu'il est beau, mon jupon, quelle est belle ma jupette. So we had that. We have the dance, the fashion, and the cooking together. Funny enough, today that's what I do. It's crazy. By the age of 19, I'm like, I'm gonna do my dance company now. And I started doing this dance that I didn't know what I was doing, but it was just like, I don't want to do complete ballet. I don't want to do complete modern. I don't want to do traditional folk dance, and we have many lovely traditional folk. But I just thought, I'm gonna mix something up. I'm gonna change, I'm gonna do my own thing. People call me different things, crazy girl, white girl. What is she doing? What kind of dance is that? That is the white people dance. And I carry on doing my white people / crazy girl dance. And I just thought, I want to teach people how to do my dance. And then I recruited a few youngsters around my age, a little bit younger, and said, okay, this is the technique, and this is what you do. And I would do every single thing, like, because I would say to people, can you just move, do something so that I can use it to choreograph? Like, Grace, I don't know what you're asking. I can't. So I would just create every single piece of movement and put it together and then teach people. It was hard work. And then I was told that I was doing Afro contemporary dance. I'm like, oh, thank you. I like that. So I went to Saint Culturel Français and said, I've got a dance crew and I want to dance here. They're like, who are you? I'm Grace Ekad. And what kind of dance you do? I'm doing Afro contemporary dance. I will have you know. So you can come and have a look. And we were training on cement. It was hard work, and we would walk like hours to go training. And then the director of the Centre Culturel Français, Monsieur Petit, merci, he came and said, okay then, okay, we'll come and see you. And he sat there and watched that. It's like, what do you want? I said, I want a tour. I want a tour in, the 10th province in Cameroon. So you got it. Well done.
Wow.
And that was it. And I toured, and I was 21 when I had my daughter. And it was a bad path. It was, everything was going south. Because I wasn't happy to carry on singing. I wanted to dance, and I didn't want to dance like je ne suis pas une voiture à déposer. I didn't want to dance. I wanted to do like big stuff, and it was just not working. And those things never last, do they? I don't think they last. Those romance, they always like, it's a place where everyone is needed, wanted, and people just go. And we were very young, to be fair. Before I had her, I had a health problem where I was told that I might not be able to have children. And I became I think I was 19 when I had her. I became you ask any woman, like when you're not looking for having a child or whatever, you're just like, oh, whatever. But when someone tells you you can't have a child, that is like something just create. I want it, I need it, and you just go, So even though the relationship wasn't going well, and I didn't want to be volatile. I never have been. So I so wanted this child. I remember even praying about it, doing all the rubbish but praying. about the child. Oh, very intelligent, very inquisitive, very calm, because unfortunately her few young, when she was very, very little, I'm traveling, so she's mostly with my mom, and she's the baby of a, long family, her cousin, and she's the youngest, so she I guess she used to internalize. Is that the word?
Analyze.
Internalize. You know that I just used the French word to me. Anyway, never mind. Yeah, she internalize how she felt. So she was kind of quiet, but really, you see her eyes, and she's looking, and she's analyzing, and she, and she would ask questions, a lot of questions, and I love that. And I used to say to her, when you're asking questions, you need to look me in the eyes. I don't want you to look down. And she struggled a bit with that when she was 5. She would look down, and no, look at me. And when she got it, it just became everything. She would tell me, she would explain, and she came here. She couldn't speak English, obviously. She was 5, and mother tongue French. She just picked it up. It was amazing.
When I was 10, my primary school celebrated the abolition of slavery, the 200th year, and there was a rapper and a writer called Akala, who's quite big here. He came to our primary school, and he encouraged us to write a short story, a poem, or a song on the theme of slavery and our feelings around the abolition of slavery. So I wrote a poem called Unheard Cries, in the voice of a slave. And, it was well received among my friends. We all loved each other's output. But when I went to my secondary school, there was a verse speaking competition that I entered, and we were supposed to use other poets like Sylvia Plath and T.S. Eliot, and sort of thought, you know what, I'm going to do me, because that's where I feel most comfortable. I'm passionate about this poem. And I have to be honest, maybe I was a bit of an activist, or I thought myself a bit of an activist, but I went to a very English, open-minded, but very English school, and I was the only black girl in my year group, the only African in my school, essentially. And I felt it was really important to me, maybe I was trying to make a statement, to use that poem. So that was probably the first thing that was noticed and that was published. But officially, I started writing for the school chronicle when I was in year 9, so I was 14. It was usually a task left to the academics, the teachers, and the friends of the school, and it was distributed. And I pitched writing about a trip to Morocco to my teacher because I read the chronicle, and he said, "I'll talk to the powers that be, whoever." And it was very, why not? If you can do a good job, why not? Like an opportunity. But of course I latched onto that and used that as my little beginnings of a portfolio, and started writing for the school paper when I was older, and used that to get myself into a magazine in London, reviewing restaurants around Chelsea and Holborn when I was about 16, 17, and then used that to get myself into a fashion magazine. But I consider my first official published piece was when I was 14. I wrote a travel article for the Chronicle. I think storytelling is so important to me. I know that's how people bond, whether it's just doing this, talking to each other about each other's lives, or whether it's being extravagant and talking about histories or legends from each other's cultures. So watching my mum do that was fascinating for me, and I loved seeing how others responded to that. But it gave me an appreciation for beauty, and beauty is subjective, but I think loving life and creating beauty, I have, no shame in aspiring to create something beautiful. And it also taught me, again, about ambition within a creative sphere. So not necessarily I'm going to take over the world ambition, but ambition where you have an idea, which is just a little gem, and you push yourself to try and achieve it because anything is possible in the world. That sort of attitude, that very positive attitude, early on I couldn't necessarily articulate it, but I think that's what I got from that as well, just from watching her on stage. Traveling with my mother, around Europe especially, I was a toddler, from being a toddler to about 8. We went to Holland and Amsterdam, Paris, etc., just for her dance company. And I remember being in awe of all these people who were in awe of her. And I don't know if it clicked, but I knew that it was kind of around her sphere. It was her doing. And I remember thinking, wishing, praying, literally praying that I wanted to be just like her when I was older. And then when I discovered, or she discovered, that I could write, I used to write poetry in primary school, that's when I thought this is going to be my thing. And I'm going to use it to get myself around the world and to create my own life, just like with my mom. I remember from her performances, which were always massive, massive events, to much more intimate classes with primary school children, often in really out of the way private schools in England, which I found quite fascinating. We'd essentially do African dance, contemporary too, but we'd have this whole scene, have djembe, balafon, just a whole company. And we'd go to this red brick stately home of a school. So I really have strong memories of these English kids enjoying this new culture. And I remember her dancing on stage. I remember her team. I remember the costumes, the music, everything.
I went to Montpellier. They had like fantastic dance festival there. And I went there as a choreographer and showed what I was doing, and it was amazing. I was invited back, and then I came with my dance crew and choreographed a whole piece for this French company that came into Cameroon and put together a group of musicians, plastician, no, in French it's a plasticien, but in English, artists, artists together, and I was the choreographer, all of that, and we tour in I think 5 cities in France. So I came back and I was touring with my dance company, and then we were invited here by the Art Council of England for a contribution to the dance scene, to bring something new. And I came to London, and it was quite surreal because I didn't have I have a degree now in fashion, but I have different qualifications. Henri Thierry trained me as a dancer, Dorian Lachey, a lot of them. So I had a lot of training after that, but I didn't have a specific qualification. But for me to speak about dance, and I knew a lot, I was surprised. How do I know all of this? And it just grew, and I started going to more training in dance, mostly French side, because I didn't understand. I couldn't speak a word of English when I arrived here. So I was doing all my training in French. So when I was ready, I started teaching in school, colleges, university, teaching Afro-contemporary dance. So, and I taught students that was taking GCSE dance and things like that. And then disaster struck. 2005, Grace, we're sorry, you have a very aggressive breast cancer. So everything stopped.
The first time I was playing on my scooter on Rodford Road, where we lived at the time, it was a sunny day, and I didn't have a care in the world. I was 9. That's all I wanted, was to play on my scooter and hopefully get some ice cream later. And my mum sat on the sort of porch outside watching me, and then she beckoned to me and she told me that she wasn't very well, and but that everything would be okay. And I assumed, living in England, that she meant she had a flu, and I didn't really know obviously I didn't know anything about cancer. I literally had no idea what we were in for. And every thing from surgery to chemotherapy, to the repeat of those things, to appointments, to family friends bringing loads of food, and the support, and then my aunt coming all the way from Holland to stay with us. The more these things happened, the more I realized this illness was a lot more significant than I'd thought. But I'm so grateful that my mum told it to me like that, because from the get-go, I knew she'd be fine. I felt like I had the attitude of, this is something we have to get through, so we will. And that never really left me, even though it did drag on for years, literally years, all throughout my secondary school education. I had good years and bad years of being affected by the side effects of living with cancer, or living with someone who has cancer.
It was a tiny stage 3, very, very tiny. I think it was 2 millimeter. Oh, I'm very bad with this thing. It was tiny. But it was so aggressive. It was going everywhere, like spreading. Girl, calm down, you know? And initially they said that you have breast cancer. We're gonna do a lumpectomy because it's tiny. I'm like, oh, thank you. And then they're like, we're sorry, we can't do a lumpectomy because it's already spread. We need to do a mastectomy. It's then that I realized that there is one thing I cannot do. I cannot stop and let my daughter, who's seen me since she's born, she's seen me going, you know, doing all this stuff. And then now just going to sit on the sofa and wait to die? No, there's no way I'm letting, no way.
With my mother's illness and everything we went through, I had to be strong. And that wasn't always the most healthy approach, because my version of strong was plowing through, especially with my education. I kept my head down, I got on with it. My version of strong, unfortunately, was also not crying, you know. So, growing up understanding that strength isn't always in a stiff upper lip, but it's in allowing yourself to be vulnerable and processing things so that you can come out on the other side. I'm still learning that. But I think I will be stronger. I think I am growing to be strong. But it's weird because having gone through everything has taught me to pick my moments, which is, I think, is a good thing, you know, to know what's worth allowing yourself to completely break down for and what isn't. You know, apart from cats and animals and squirrels.
The very first thing I did is like, if I can help other people, it will keep my mind busy and it will give me something to do. So I spoke to my care nurse. I said, I'm a dancer and I'm struggling to do the physio exercises that help with the mobility of the arm when you had mastectomy. As a dancer, I'm struggling. I'm sure other women are struggling too. Therefore, I want to offer free classes, dance classes. I use the physio exercises and turn them into Afro contemporary dance based music and drumming. We had fun.
I wasn't going to let my mum see me fall apart. And I wasn't going to let it ruin every opportunity I had. Because although cancer took away our ability to travel fabulously, which is a very sort of materialistic thing to pick up on, but it took away a lot of that privilege. I still felt privileged to have a mother like her, to have the friends that we had, and to be able to be creative and survive and even live through that creativity. So I knew that I wasn't going to waste any opportunity at all. and I knew that I was going to a very good school. And everything that came my way was, go for it, say yes, just, without question. So I threw myself into, hence why all that writing and all that early achievement, if you will. On the one hand, yes, I did well, but on the other, it was almost like medicine for me to keep going.
So the second thing I did is I need to go back to school. So while I was having treatment, that's where the fashion come. I thought I'm going to have the mastectomy, and then I'm going to have the chemotherapy, and then within 4 or 5 months, I will be okay. Oh no. I had 5 surgeries. So it went on and on. It seemed like I had surgery every month, every year. So I was always in hospital, or I'm recovering from, back to hospital or recovering from. And then suddenly, because it was like that, I just decided I'm going to go back to school. So I went while I was having the chemo and everything. I went back to college because I went back to college to study fashion, because when I had my dance company called Ziguda, which means force and courage, I was doing costume. I was making costume because I wanted my dancer to look a certain way, and I couldn't find a costume in the shop. I couldn't find, so I would just do it myself, and I would make costumes. So it was just a natural progression for me to go back to doing fashion, not to go back, but to explore the fashion. Before that, I went to a women group to learn about the pattern cutting and everything, to understand how the garment are put together, what my mom was actually doing, what is it. And it was like, wow, it's not just sewing, it's not just putting things together, it's actually intelligent. And actually, if you don't understand the fabric and you don't understand how garments are put together, you can call yourself a fashion designer, that's fine, but you need to know the fabric. Even if you don't sketch, you need to understand the fabric. So that's what I did, and then I went to college. Next thing I know, I have 10 distinctions from my college, and I'm offered a place at the local university west of England, and yeah. So I was doing fashion, and I was offered a place. I went for an interview, and I was talking to these 2 tutors about fashion, and they saw my work. I was already doing the painting, the dyeing. I even made a shoe out of rocks and wire and a branch of a tree. They're like, this girl is known for fashion, she's textile. So they're like, would you mind having another interview with the textile team? I said, okay. And I waited, and then went. And then they're like, it was quite a shock to me. I was accepted, both course, fashion and textile. So which one you choose? I'm saying, what do you do here again? They tell me, what do you do? Oh, okay, I will do textile. So it linked fashion and textile together. And that's what I did. And it was quite a good thing, because not a lot of people were accepted, from our college to uni. And I was actually told not to celebrate because because it was bad news. So all around, and I was like, yes, they gave me the place, and I went to uni and I studied fashion and textile for 3 years and graduated in 2012. Well, I started my fashion line.
So I really want to be more involved with my mother's fashion label, and just having more of an active role with that. But I also want to, while I am pursuing my short fiction, being published, agents, that sort of thing, that's the dream. I think journalism is great. I've done that for 5 years now, and I've been fortunate enough to work for some great publications. But I want to go back to creative writing and just being creative all around. Short stories are my comfort zone, if I'm honest. So I would really like to be a novelist one day. Maybe chronicle a certain ancestor's life, or, just something that comes from truth. and something that feels relatable. So that's my personal goal with that. When it comes to poetry, I rely entirely on how I'm feeling in the moment, and it just comes out. It's not always brilliant. I have to work back into it. And so just allowing my emotions to be, and not being afraid of them. When it comes to short stories, which is what short fiction is my thing, I adore reading it, and I adore writing it. I think about Cameroon. I think about growing up a little bit in Africa, and the juxtaposition between Kribi, Cameroon, and Paris. And I just think of all those storytelling traditions and how without stories I wouldn't really have a sense of identity. I like to know where I'm from, where I'm going, and I like to know about the people around me. So that's my muse. It's stories, it's histories and backgrounds, and wanting to share a little bit of that. I do have a hope that they feel like the individual I'm writing about. If I'm putting them in a position where they are a slave, or they are someone about to go on a march, or they are a girl in ancient Greece, running errands and being turned into a statue. That's one of my older ones. That they feel what that person is feeling, because I think empathy is one of the most powerful human qualities out there, and I think that is probably the most important thing for me, is to make the reader feel, and hopefully to make them think, even if it's just for a second before they go back to their lives.
I feel blessed. I feel like I'm looked after, and I don't know if I'm wiser. I'm certainly older, and I'm more resilient than ever, and I'm more stubborn than ever in terms of not actually caring about what another human who have two legs like me thinks, unless it's constructive. If it's just the, comment or, I don't know, point of view, I let them have it, and I don't care. It's all good. It's all good.
She taught me that it's okay to ask questions. It's more than okay. And she would always say, if someone tries to say something that is an order or command, by all means, if it's an adult, respect it and do it. But if you don't understand what you're doing, do you think there's any point in doing that? So feel free to respectfully ask why. Mm-hmm. And she taught me just, to ask questions and she allowed me to be inquisitive, because I think in Cameroonian culture, and I spent some time there, we would travel, we'd go back. Sometimes there's a whole thing about children being seen and not heard.
Yeah. What is that all about?
It's old-fashioned here as well, and it's, and I respect that. I understand that. Obviously, I'm a kid. I'm not going to know what you're talking about, and I'm not going to interject about current affairs or whatever. But Mum didn't like that sort of very strict, the quieting of children.
Yeah, I didn't see the point of that, and it was a little bit difficult. I mean, she always has been an amazing child, so obedient, so respectful, so and I had this whole company, a team of people coming dancing with me. That's where we were invited in England. So we're living in this massive house with everyone, and I have my child with me. And we're all from Cameroon, so they're all men. So I'm the leader of this dance company with a child. They're all men, and they think they can say, "Patricia, come here." What? No. Like you call her and you ask the question. Those are two things that you need to give her time. They're like, "What are you talking, Grace? Please, we African, we Cameroon." I'm like, "Not with my child." You call her, you give her time to reply, you give her time to come to you, and then you speak to her. You don't scream at her. You don't. It was hard. because they were like, oh, she's spoiling her. That is not the way to educate a child. I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. And that's how my mom was as well. And also when you scream, if you scream at me, I don't know what you're saying. And I grew up like that. And my dad would say that out of all his children, I was the entity, I was the stubborn one. But it's because he's screaming and I can't get what he wanted me to do. So I was just there. And when he get up, because he used to, he would try to whip, and my brother and sister would stand there to wait to be whipped, beaten. Why? I would run, and it's like, you see, she's not obedient. She's not standing, I would stand. So it's kind of those kind of things that I didn't want my child to feel like. She can't express herself, she can't ask questions, she's scared. I didn't want her to be scared, no.
Poise, warmth, wisdom, and an almost intimidating sense of self again, like, I don't want to say aura or presence or anything ambiguous like that, but there is a sort of strength there. But physically, they're both tall, they're both poised, and my grandmother was old school. She was big on etiquette, and my mum as well. Funnily enough, for someone who sort of didn't rely on daddy's money, kind of thing, and went off and did her own thing and wanted to be in charge of her own career, she's also quite old school like that with etiquette. So that's one of the biggest things that I know she took from her mum, that she taught me. And not just, not table manners as such, but just being respectful. Yeah.
She's better than I am. She's very porous. She's very giving in terms of allowing people to be and finding good. She's so good at finding good in people, which I struggle with. She will take it. She can take it. And take time to digest, and then, with elegance, tell you what what is not, she doesn't feel is comfortable. I struggle with that. I struggle with that. So I'm learning a lot from her. She learned from me, maybe, but she's an amazing young lady. She's intelligent. She's even wise as well. Surprisingly, she's very, very wise, and she chooses her moment. When she was growing up, I said you can achieve anything, and you don't need to rush to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Just do what makes you feel comfortable and happy.
I think my mum's been very brave and almost shameless about her dreams and going for them. I touched on something earlier by saying that she could have relied on her family, and which isn't a bad thing. She could have got married young, done quite well, and she could have lived a life that they set out for her, especially her father. But from the beginning, she knew what she wanted and she went after it. And so that's my takeaway. I think it's a great shame, this life is so fragile. It would be such a great shame to have a real burning desire to do something and to just go for the safe option. And that's typical artist talk, I know, because a lot of people think that's crazy. But I think that's my takeaway, is to listen to your gut and go for your goals, your dream.
I choke a little. I would love her to be her, and to not let anyone tell her what she should be, because I know and I've seen that she can achieve anything and she will be fine. I know that. It's hard, it can be hard, but my dreams for her is for her to pursue what she want to do. I think like for any parent, that's what they want, for the child to be happy. And all the choices she's made so far are amazing. She doesn't just go for things. She waits and ponder and talk to me about it and discuss it. But I never ever, even when she was 5, said, this is what I think we should do, ever. So she comes and said to me, I have this idea, I have sometimes it's crazy idea. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So where are you now? She tells me. Oh, so you want to do this, how do you get there? She tells me. And I just keep asking questions so that she's actually, I don't think I would do that. So everything comes from her, nothing comes from me. And that's how I want her to be. I want her to find someone when she's ready. That is the part that I'm very scared about, for her to not be happy with someone, because she's happy now. And I don't want anyone to come and disturb that, her peace of mind, her peace, her happiness, her safe place. I would love someone to come in her life to enhance what she already has, not to disrupt and to make her sad and you know. So I'm very, very scared about that. But at the same time, I have to say, I don't want her. I'm very, very comfortable being single. I don't want it to influence her for her to be single, if it makes sense. So it's that area that is like, oh, I want her to go to, you know, to have fun and to find love and to, you know, I don't want her to be like me in every single, you know. Maybe when I'm 60, I might think of finding someone, or 70 when I can't do anything anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I never, like I said before, spoken about all of this. We spoke so much and it brought me back all the way. You know, my dad, my mom, my family and everything, my daughter and how we came here, the problems and the business, and wow, like all this stuff. And I'm sat here, I'm like, we went through all of that. Like, you know, it's
Jen.
Soulivity Magazine brings you the best in inspiration on Soulivity TV. Check out our new shows. Mark your calendars for Soulivity Magazine shows by going to soulivity.com now.